Hello and welcome to the Professional Insight Podcast, Season 5, Episode 3. My name is Brandon Curry.
I'm Jeff Collins.
I'm Josh Bond.
I'm Trevor Lindy.
All right, I think we got our tech issues all sorted out. Just for anyone that's trying to watch us, we are definitely on Dean Blundell's YouTube channel, the Dean Blundell Network. And also, I think we figured out our YouTube channel, maybe, possibly. I don't know.
It is figured out, but the platform we use to do the live stream is having technical difficulties right now. So we're not actually connected to our Professional Insight YouTube channel, but it'll be uploaded later.
All right. So just when you guys do, and if you're watching us live, make sure that you like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. That'd be great. And also, yeah, please send us all in any of our topics. We have an action-packed episode today. We've got 3 guests coming on, which we're pretty excited about. A couple of them have been on the podcast before. Good morning, Elaine. Thank you very much for following us.
She eating a taco?
Yeah, so
it's a taco and a coffee.
No, that looks like a burrito and a coffee.
Huh?
I think that's what she's doing.
Good start to your day.
Yeah, good start to the day.
You know,
That's pretty good. So yeah, anyway, we have action pack. We have Kristen Marischuk coming on first, and we're going to be talking about mental health in the workplace and the importance of mental health, and any crisis prevention numbers will be posted as well. Ways to, we get questions all the time, guys, like about the proper pronouns in the workplace, right? Your HR policies and how to, incorporate that. And, these are, state of the art, like, situations that are going on right now. So
I'm lost. I'll tell you right now, I'm lost, right? Like, I mean, I've got a couple of young girls that are starting to go, get to that point now. And I'm trying to struggle to understand it myself. Right. So it's,
yeah, I totally get it. So, she's up, and then, at around 11 o'clock, we're going to have the CEO of Gales Gas, Jessica Friesen, who has been on our podcast before. She's a great contributor. She's done some great episodes. She is
she can get us a gas discount here or what?
Yeah, exactly.
Hot topic.
Gas card,
well, here's the thing. So it kind of branches nicely because Gales Gas, which is a independent brand in Niagara for anyone that's like, across Canada. She is a certified living wage employer, and the company is also a certified rainbow employer, which is, I think, really great and absolutely amazing. And then at around noon, 11:45 noon, we'll have Patricia Brick on to talk about how to update your LinkedIn profile, your resume, what to look for, because she's a recruiter. So what do recruiters look for? So get your questions ready for that. And I can unequivocally tell you that she helped out my wife big time with her LinkedIn and her resume. So that was really great. So without any further ado,
2 hiring practices that you had mentioned, will those be defined for our listeners?
Hiring practices?
The rainbow.
Oh, yeah. Well, the rainbow is LGBTQ2S plus, right? Employer certified, and then the living wage. So absolutely. But without any further ado, let's welcome our first guest to the podcast. First time contributor. Chris, there she is. Oh, hey, Kristen, how's it going?
Hey, good. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, welcome to the podcast. So for our watchers and listeners out there, you want to tell us a bit about yourself and what you do for full time and all that, please.
Yeah. So, oh gosh, now it's just me. I'm talking to myself.
We're all here.
Very distracting. Okay. My name is Kristen Marischuk. I am a registered social worker. And I've been in the social work field since my undergrad, which was in 2005. Always had an interest in helping people. Didn't think I had enough smarts to become a psychologist or a psychiatrist. So I'm very happy to be doing what I'm doing as a social worker. Later on in life, I completed my master's of social work, which allows me to practice individual counseling. And so that's what I'm doing now. And that's definitely one of my passions in using the master's degree. And so I have kind of like a private practice on the side, so evenings and weekends. But my full-time job, I'm a registered social worker, and I act as one at Trillium Health Partners, based in Mississauga, Ontario. And so my role there is quite unique. I'm very proud to have this role, and I think a lot of workplaces would probably benefit from something like this. But I'm on the wellness team, and our main purpose is to support staff. So in my role as a registered social worker, I do offer one-on-one counseling and support, mixed in with some psycho education pieces to help staff kind of understand their emotions, kind of process different elements of burnout and stress and that sort of thing. And of course, it's with healthcare workers, so that's really prevalent. And then doing kind of facilitating critical debriefing, so helping staff kind of work through the emotional impacts of things that are traumatic that they experience, that they witness. Yeah, so that's what I do full time, and then the private practice on the side.
Wow. Okay. And I know
that's busy.
That's busy. Now
Yeah.
you really now talked about the whole wellness team and really catering to staff. You want to maybe expand on that? Like how recent is the wellness team or division at Trillium Health, and what was the precedents like to start this team? Like, what, obviously that's healthcare for anyone that's across the country, where, you know, Trillium Health is 3 hospitals, right, in downtown Toronto, some of the largest hospitals in Canada, some of the top surgeons in Canada, and obviously pandemic. But why did they start the wellness team? What was the reasoning for it?
So, I mean, the wellness team was certainly there much before before I've been with the organization for about 1.5 years. So it's been there for longer than that, and to promote health and wellness in the workplace. So it fits under the umbrella of, say, like occupational health. So where we have a team of people helping staff with physical health and limitations around that, and, you know, returning them to work and integrating them back into the workforce or into the workplace. They have this component, very small one, but proud, of wellness, and recognizing that staff are not only dealing with their physical health. We really need to honor staff because they're bringing their whole self. So honoring their whole self, and that sometimes people are struggling with mental health. And so that could be as a result of the work that they experience. So just kind of like that chronic stress and high levels of stress and anxiety during work, or it could be related to something else, but really trying to honor that. In some ways it can, you know, my role in the wellness team can be a preventative measure as well. So if staff are recognizing that they're struggling, as opposed to working until they need to kind of, you know, they're completely burnt out and they're off of work, perhaps the role of the wellness team can also help in that preventative way, so that it doesn't come to that point when then we have a staff member who's off. So yeah, so it's been around, the wellness team has been around for a few years before me, but just really recognizing that staff, that healthcare workers definitely need more support in that area. And of course, there's things like our organization has an EFAP program. They also have, which is free. So it's a outside paid resource that Trillium pays for to kind of like help staff and their family members with different things. So we do have that, but oftentimes if there is you know, there's barriers to that. You have to find the phone number. You have to figure out who to call. Like, what does this look like? Like, what does the support look like? And that goes the same with benefits as well. So full-time employees would have benefits through Sun Life. So woo, Sun Life. But,
Yay!
Yeah. But the issue is that oftentimes, especially in the healthcare field, when nurses have a day off, and you know, what I hear from them is that they literally need to sit and not do anything. Like, sometimes when they're in a spot where they're really struggling, they can't physically function. Sometimes they binge watch TV, they're sitting, they need rest. And so picking up a phone, trying to find a provider, figuring out how much, how much money they have for a particular, like, so for counseling, let's say, is just exhausting. So it's nice to have something that's in-house. And I offer Zoom appointments, like phone, whatever on site, during their work hours. Maybe they want to pop up and meet with me during a break or during lunch. So yeah.
Now, Kristen, does this make it more of a need because inflation's just killing everybody right now with price? So their stress level goes way up with the gas prices every time people are looking at the grocery prices and all that. Like, I think everyone's really starting to feel the crunch right now. So I guess your need would be much more extreme at this time, or it's starting to ramp up at very least, I'd imagine, right?
Yeah. It's the domino effect of all of these different factors. So especially for healthcare, they're, living within a pandemic, they're working. So they're working, and then they're coming home to all of these things. And then, the inflation and the price of gas and groceries. And it's stressful. It's stressful. People, like, especially in healthcare, they don't feel like they have a break from anything, or that anything kind of comes easy. So definitely some stress related to that.
Yeah, I think you're going to get crazy busy real soon, because you can see it. Like, every time you go to fill up right now, it's like, and crazy. Groceries right now and everything. And then vacation, people they want to go on vacation, but can they afford to go right now? Right. So it's,
yeah, absolutely.
Here's a loaded question for you.
What was
Kristen,
that?
A little bit from an employer's perspective, how, mental health is difficult to assess a lot of times. It's not that empirical as other ailments. How do we limit abuse?
Limit abuse in what way?
Abuse of employees
being overworked,
falsifying mental health.
Oh, okay. So in terms of, so just, using that as maybe an excuse, like not to come in or something like that.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's really hard. That's really hard. And certainly, I'm not in a place to assess that. So the thing about even being a social worker in general or counselor is that we have to take things at face value, and so we have to believe what we're being told. And part of that is tricky, and I've actually found myself trying to navigate that in previous roles in the field of social work, roles that I've had before. I've always had to establish kind of whether or not somebody's telling me the truth or not. That was a big part of my role. As a practicing registered social worker, that's really not part of my role at all. It's more around starting where the client's at. And so if they're at a point where, say they are, not telling the truth, and of course there's always two sides to a story, that sort of thing. For me, it's unhelpful to figure out if they're telling me the truth, because then we can't kind of move forward. So it's about, I think, having deeper conversations, and then kind of, having the client or the employee or whoever that is kind of figure out why, if they are being misleading with information, why that would be. But
That makes perfect sense, right? Because you're more focused on, like, you know, getting a result, i.e. getting the individual better, right?
Yeah. And so it's a bit challenging. I know there are some, for the other people in occupational health, like they have their own kind of like, you know, if you're off for a certain amount of time, we need to see, you know, a doctor's note. We need to kind of verify that this is, that this is a sanctioned time off type of a thing. But my role is really to support them. To support them and not.
It's got to be super tough because you probably know some of the times they're probably lying, and you just gotta go with it, right? Because it's just a way worse thing to cross if you're accusing them and you're wrong.
Yeah. Awesome. And sometimes it's, you know, like what they're going through, you know, I handle, like we all handle things very differently. And so we all have different thresholds of, you know, how much stress we can handle, how long we can work at a stage of burnout, like all of those sorts of things. So, but actually I'm really pleased with a few, like I've had a few one-on-one sessions recently with very young kind of like new staff members who are kind of seeking out more in a preventative way. And I think that's so unique. And so great to do the work now.
Absolutely.
And then have longevity in your career, you know?
Yeah. No, that's perfect. I mean, I think it's low, but I'd be curious, you know, the percentage of abuse that happens versus, I mean, I would guess that it's sub 5%.
I think a good thing to focus on though is people trying to be, you know, proactive and jump on it head on, because I think burnout's a pretty big thing, especially in my business right now. There's quite a bit of burnout going on. It's just relentless. It's nonstop. You know, it just keep going and going and going. If you can recognize that and reach out to someone like yourself and kind of, you know, massage it down a little bit, you might be able to stop yourself from having a breakdown and stuff.
So the thing that I think, well, one thing I want to tell everyone that are watching on YouTube or on Facebook that at the bottom of our screen are some key phone numbers that Kristen wanted to be posted throughout, just in case anyone is having a mental health episode or crisis or, you know, questions or whatever. These, some are national numbers, some are local numbers in Ontario, but just please feel free to reach out. Or if you're watching us right now and you just want please reach out into our chat. We have no problem. This is the whole point of having Kristen on. And I think with regards to someone like myself, our firm is a broker for group benefits. So we come across this quite often. And the one thing that I've seen a big increase is an increase in paramedical services. So paramedical services are your chiros, your physios, your massage therapists, but included in that is coverage for registered social workers and psychotherapists and psychologists, etc. And also a huge increase we've found with EAP programs, which is employee assistance programs, right down to you have a toll-free number to call. It doesn't cost you anything. You get a couple free and to talk things through. And I think as an employer, that would be the good morning, Melissa. And that would be the key, I think, that we always advise employers to say, listen, to what Kristen's saying, like you can't, and what we're saying is you can't really question anybody, but definitely give them the resources to go and seek help. I don't know, Kristen, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's definitely, it's just about making it as accessible as possible and, you know, giving resources. Like, I think the accessibility in my particular, with my particular organization is really important. So yeah, there's a lot of, and we're also, I mean, the wellness team is also just thinking about preventative measures and really kind of like destigmatizing mental health. Like our wellness team is also kind of funding, or THP is funding mental health first aid training for staff. And that's kind of training geared toward having conversations about mental health, or if you notice your colleague is struggling, how to approach them, if you should approach them, things like that, to really kind of help employees have a lot of tools to be able to have conversations. And I think it's also important as well, with many people still working from home, or some people kind of shifting into the transition of work from home but on site, so it's how to navigate these conversations about mental health to really support each other.
I think we've also seen during the pandemic that I had one familiar to the podcast. I won't mention the names or anything, but she's a significant employer, runs a significant sizable team. And she mentions to me, several months ago in the middle of the pandemic, that there's some roles that she will be considering to keep at home permanently, because the employees were actually more productive because these people are introverts, and they just, being around people really kind of just sucked the energy out of them, and they just didn't do well. Ironically, when the pandemic happened, they were actually more productive. So I guess rethinking the way, the Monday to Friday 9 to 5, that won't exist anymore. So if someone's more productive between the hours of, 5 p.m. and 11 p.m. I don't know. I'm just making something up because they're an evening person as opposed to a morning person. As long as they get the job done, and we could probably talk to a couple of our guests later on, specifically Patricia on that, and maybe looking at how employers are evolving. That'd be kind of cool. But Kristen, what are your thoughts on that, and what has THP done in that perspective?
Oh yeah, like in terms of like the work from home model, I think everybody's kind of shifting and trying to, so from a wellness perspective, I think some of our requests from managers who manage a team who all work remotely is, how do we stay connected with each other? How do we stay engaged? How do we work as a team, but when we don't actually see each other? And so what are some strategies and wellness resources can we provide? And so there's a lot of talk amongst our small team about how to promote kind of that connection still with team members, even though there's remote work happening. So I think that we're at the beginning of something that we have some answers to, like we have some suggestions and some things that might work for one team. But it's really at the beginning stages of trying to figure that out. So that's from the wellness perspective, that's what kind of we're hearing, and what we're trying to provide people. So I know one team was really interested in having monthly wellness sessions. So many people who work from home, their routine is kind of, well, since COVID, they've been working from home. So, but their routine has really changed as opposed to when they were working on site, in meaning, they don't pack a lunch anymore. They don't, they have different sleeping patterns. They, might not, be fully dressed. They might, there's all of these sorts of things. So it's messing with people's routines a bit. And so from a wellness perspective, is there any, if this isn't working for people, what can we do to support that, right? So talking about establishing a routine, the importance of that, the importance of nutrition at home, and what does that look like, right? Because when we have access to our full fridge and pantry and all of that sort of thing, so people are just noticing, even changes that way. So we're working and we're strategizing with different teams depending on what their needs are. We're hosting kind of different themed wellness sessions, and also trying to kind of see if we can mainstream some of these things to offer it to a lot of the work from home teams.
Now, Kristen, we have a couple of comments in that are coming in live, so I want to kind of get a couple of them.
Yeah.
Melissa basically said, including a time code or some sort of code so people can take time from work in case they can't talk at home for whatever reason. I think that's a really good suggestion, just like incorporating different ways that they can communicate with their employer. There is a good question that just came in from Facebook, if I can. Here it is right there. I live with a loved one who suffers with mental health. What do you suggest are ways I can be supportive to them when they are having a breakdown or episode?
Oh yeah, that's really, yeah. Thank you for the question. And that's, yeah, it can be really, that can be really challenging, especially when you see kind of, when you see that loved one kind of shift in their mood. And I don't know if this is a pattern where this is something that regularly occurs, but certainly it sounds like you're seeing a shift that's not, that's kind of stepping away from who that person usually is. And the struggle is that, and even for me as a social worker, the struggle that I have sometimes is that I want to fix the situation. I want to, say the perfect thing that will, get that person up and, feeling great and all of that sort of thing. And I think a lot of us feel that way. I think especially when it comes to somebody that you love, that you live with, that's a family member, a close friend, is that you just have that inherent kind of want to fix things. And the thing is that we can't fix things. That person, it comes from that person. And so in saying that, it's best to, be as supportive as possible. And I'm not sure what that looks like for your loved one, but, maybe that is, doing practical things around the house so that that person doesn't have to worry about that. Maybe having a proactive conversation or bringing up, how are you feeling? Like, is there anything that I can do for you? Kind of initiating conversations, because sometimes it's hard, from what I hear, it can be hard for people to ask for help when they're feeling really low and really down. And oftentimes, especially with those people who struggle with depression specifically, they often feel that they can be a burden. And so they won't initiate and ask for help. They don't want to bother anybody. And so they'll kind of quietly, work through those times of sadness. So initiating conversation, how are you doing? Offering, if they're able-bodied, to go out for walks or, a drive or something like that, just to get them out of the house. But yeah, it really depends on what support looks like for that person. Right. But I acknowledge that it can be extremely hard, when you want them to be better, and you don't want to see them suffering, to have a solution, but, definitely, and offering kind of, support in terms of, if they want to engage in counseling or if they want to have a conversation with their family doctor. I mean, even, booking an appointment for them, that sort of thing can take a load off. I hope that answers your question.
Nudge them in the right direction, right?
Yeah. And just really, I guess, studying what they have access to, right? I mean, removing barriers and is what you're kind of saying there, Kristen, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
What are your
another question, actually? I've seen the number at the bottom of the screen a couple of times now. I think it was Pathstone for children.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any suggestions or anything for kids, especially like tweeners or kids who are about to become teenage, with all the cyberbullying going on and body shaming and stuff like that happens at their age? Like, I think children's depression or mental health is a huge topic right now, especially, with everybody not being able to see each other for the last 2 years. There's been a lot of cyberbullying out there, and I'm trying my best to navigate my son by supporting him, and he's now on Twitter all the time, and there's some nasty stuff that can be said out there. And I don't know, do you have any tips for that? Because I think that's something prevalent in today's society.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And yeah, we're not there yet, but not in like just anticipating those moments when they become on, like when our kids become online, and you know,
it's interesting. It's really interesting.
It's complicated.
Yeah, it's complicated. World.
Well, there's Instagram, there's text messaging, there's Twitter, there's, you know, TikTok. Like TikTok, if you don't have a good video out there, you know, like they all talk on there. And the weird part I find now, when they get in person with each other, they're uncomfortable. But when they're online behind their phone, you know, they talk a tough game. You know, there's a lot of keyboard warriors out there too. So it's something I'm trying to learn to navigate with my son. And my youngest one's not there yet, but my 12-year-old's all over, you know, stuff online, cyber stuff. So I have to
keep them off as long as you can.
I can't even fathom what that's like, Jeff, to be honest. As long as you can. I got you know, we got 6 and 4-year-olds, and yeah, so I guess, you know, I can't. I mean, I'm personally not on any social media except for LinkedIn. Well, hey, like if we can go back to Rookie, if we can go back to all of us for a second there, just like for full disclosure for our listeners, Kristen and I are married, so just you know, in case anyone's curious. So we do have a 6 and a 4-year-old. Kristen and I are both off of social media except for LinkedIn. We have a private Instagram account, but you'll never get accepted if we don't know you. So, and that is purely because, that is purely because
check.
we had to, we just did it for our own mental health. I mean, Jeff, just to purely be honest with you, I mean, there's business. I mean, I looked at it from an ROI perspective, from a business perspective. I'm like, really, am I getting much penetration out on the, you know, the social media, and are people really coming to me for business purposes, excluding LinkedIn? I understand that context, but others, and then Jeff, you're spot on. Like, you are 100% correct. Like, here are these tweeners going through puberty, going through all the insecurities of life, and they're getting bombarded from all these different ways of communicating, which none of us had when we were younger. And we never had any of that. So
live like Bond,
right? And here's the thing too. I mean, like, yeah, no, I completely understand where you're coming. I'm dreading taking our 6-year-old and 4-year-old through that.
I think that this is where the relationship with your kids come in too. Like, it really needs to kind of like, you know, like grip together, I guess, kind of with your kids when they're going through this. Because my suggestion, just going back to the original question, my suggestion would be, and I mean, it's impossible, like, you know, to say, you know, you can't go on any of these things because that's just the way of the world now. And so that kind of sets up for failure. But I think to again, like, be proactive in initiating conversations about, hey, like, who is online today? Who did you talk to? How did like, you know, like, just asking, like, being a little bit of like a therapist yourself, like asking them questions, making them kind of, making them think a little bit about their situations with their friendships. You know, it might, you know, they might say, oh, a friend, you know, said that I was, I don't know. A friend said that I, you know, had bad acne, or my face looked bad today. I don't know, something really kind of,
well, I'll give you an example. Shaming. I'll give you an example from my son, how boys can be really nasty and all that. My son's friend said that he looked like he had a Hitler haircut. So it was bugging him quite a bit, right? And I had to talk to him about boys ball busting and all that at his age, but it was something he was pretty sensitive about, right? So, and you know, boys can be relentless in person, never mind when they're cyberbullying, so it gets even worse.
Did he have a Hitler dude?
Oh yeah.
No.
Okay.
Really?
I had to ask.
It was really interesting, right? Well, I don't know. How do you see of it? Well, he's got thick hair, right? So
I mean, the key is keep trying to you know, play defense against your kids with the social media piece, and you know, I'm surprised that there isn't a social media piece where the parents can kind of if you turn around and can't monitor the accounts, right? You know, and
well, I watch the accounts, and the big thing he's really into right now, which I find interesting, is Twitter. And I like Twitter. I'm a social media junkie. Okay. So I'm like a lot of other people out there, and I can see quitting social media to be better for your mental health because, you know, I find going on Facebook sometimes stressful, right? So
yeah,
you know, it's an interesting portrayal because most people put their best foot forward on Facebook. So it's not necessarily the true reality in life, right? You know, it's kind of,
it's all fake.
Yeah. Well,
everybody's a hero on Facebook.
There are some people
everybody's
out there who reach out for help and that, and, you know, and there's honest people out there. But on Twitter, I find the reason I like Twitter, it's the flavor of the moment. The biggest thing going on in the world is instant information, right? And so about a week and a half ago, Supreme Court in the States had a big mention about abortion.
Yep.
And it was all over Twitter.
Yep.
And so my son had a ton of questions about that, which was very interesting about it. You know, it had to do more with women's rights and all that. I'm not really going to get into that or anything like that because that's just a whole powder keg. But we had a long discussion that night about it, and you know, we were talking about it. But it's a lot.
Good for you for actually having that conversation and really taking it, because a lot of parents probably wouldn't, because Roe v. Wade is a very complex, and it's happening in another country, and it's influencing Canada. And so bravo to you for actually trying to tackle that. If he brings
it up, I like to talk to him about it. That's just the way it is. I don't want to hide from it. I want to bring it up, and I'll tell him my opinion. I'm a pretty opinionated guy and all that. And
no, you're not.
Well, it's
like
interesting.
A mouse.
It's very interesting, though, from a kid's point of view, when you mention abortion, and they're like, why would you, and you have to bring up the other side of the coin for it and all that, right? And women's rights is, a very powerful thing. And it was a very interesting conversation. And then my 10-year-old got involved with it too. So it's interesting because there's stuff out there that they start to learn about that even the Elon Musk acquisition of Twitter, like he was tons of questions about it. Like we've had like hour-long questions about very political things.
Well, Jeff, that just goes to show you kind of raise your kids right in the sense that they feel comfortable coming to you, and I just really having that.
But am I making a mistake letting my son be on Twitter? Like it was his own interest.
That's subjective.
He looked at all, right? So that's the thing as a parent. You got to navigate all these new landmines that are out there. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. And you have a reason you got to be 13 to get on a lot of these things, or even older.
It was like that comment that came in from Elaine, right? We're saying my youngest daughter is now 19, level 1 on the autism spectrum, chooses not to, to do social media, right? So, potentially just letting your kids make that, educating them, but then let the kid make the decision for themselves. Yeah. Right. Whether or not
so, and Kristen, like just, to kind of maybe lighten it up a bit, like you live with me, so you have constantly, you gotta navigate, don't you huh? Like you just gotta
navigate what?
Yeah,
we feel
just my mental
sorry
health.
For you. We feel
right,
so
like
sorry
you like you kind of.
I can hear the.
Honestly, like
I can hear him up here. I'm on a different floor. I can hear him perfectly.
It's great, right? I mean, like but you just.
I did want to say, second what you had said, Brandon, about Jeff, the fact that your child is coming to you and saying things that happen to him or that people say to him, it's like a gift. It's a gift that he's coming to you with that, because then you can take that and you can steer the ship, right? Like you can help him. And it may seem so, as an adult, a lot of these things just seem so trivial because, we've learned and we know how to handle things and all of that sort of stuff, but he's coming to you for a reason. And, maybe that's like an opportunity to, to talk about, self-confidence and to talk about, like other things. How did that make you feel? How did you respond? Would you respond differently? Like, I don't know, like things like that, but it's so amazing that he's coming to you, because I think the thing about social media is that it's so isolating. Like it's supposed to bring people together and have that like sense of connectivity. But I also think it's something that you just do in your room privately, or you're like, you're not engaging with, you're not with people. And so it can be, and, it's hard to monitor all of these accounts, like, like Instagram and Twitter, or, whatever, Facebook, like all of those sorts of things as a parent. So
Kristen, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I really like the preventative nature of the employees being aware of their mental health. Not something that I really directed my mind to, but I do like that aspect of it. How much of things, stress, things that transpire in the workplace that you deal with, do you think can be resolved by maybe shortening an individual's work week? I mean, I just see it with the dual income households and the quick pace of the world.
Yeah, so that's actually interesting. Often within the healthcare, like with healthcare workers, there is talk about, because they work like they're 12 they worked mostly 12-hour shifts. They work in clusters. So they'll work, say, like, 4, 12-hour shifts or 3 12-hour shifts in a row, and then have some time off and that sort of thing. So I think it seems like it's always been, it's a discussion, or thought within the organization. I don't know. I'm not privy to those conversations, but I know just feedback from employees that, shortening shifts or being able to pick the type of shift that you like. It came up in a conversation last week around somebody really enjoyed working night shift. They loved it. That was their jam. They felt refreshed. They felt better. They had a good groove. They had a good crew on night shift. Like, it was just, they really enjoyed it. Another guy actually really enjoyed the night shift because it worked out for his family. So he would work night shift. He has young children. And so he would work night shift in the ICU. And then his wife would go to work during the day. And then he would watch their children during the day. Like, there was like a, say like a 3-hour, something like that, but he was able to manage it that way. And so I think the conversation is more around how can we juggle shifts? Like, how is there room within the structure that we can figure out like a, timing that works for us. And that looks so different for everybody. And I don't know about, in healthcare, I think it might look a lot differently than the typical, like, say, 9-to-5 office job. That sort of thing, but it's a 24-hour beast. And so it's set up like this for a reason. And I don't know if, there's also nursing shortages and that sort of thing. So I just don't know if any change will happen right now, but it's definitely something that's been talked about in terms of like maneuvering shifts around, maybe having longer stints of time off in between those like huge clusters where you're working the 12-hour shifts or whatever.
But we just, we try to jam so much into our busy lives as it is, right? I mean, can we not hire more? Can we not, breed more healthcare professionals, and maybe create a little bit of a reprieve for the existing ones? And I mean, I know it's, we don't snap our fingers in that solution, but again, I don't know. I'm not a healthcare person. My wife's a pharmacist, so I get it a little bit indirectly.
I hate to cut this short because we're actually doing quite well, but I know Kristen has an 11 o'clock that you have to hop on to, correct?
Yes.
So we'll just, I know Trev, you had one final question.
Got a quick question on the lighter mood of things. Kristen,
can
you help diagnose as to why Curry and Collins have an obsession with wanting to go to the bathroom in my RV?
Because it just makes common sense.
Oh my God.
I need to know this answer.
Brandon and I talked about, I weighed in on this.
She wants to do it too. She wants to do it too. She just joined the party.
I said, what was my, okay. So I agreed with, Brandon gave me the back. I think I listened to it too. And I agree with Dean. I think it was like,
yep.
Yes.
Where he said family, didn't he say like close family, friends, but like
basically along the lines of your RV, you do it. Everybody else can go to the public facilities.
Oh my gosh.
She didn't understand Jeff and I's predicament, but that's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's not our predicament. It's our mission, Curry.
You should qualify it and
that's
say
what I'm trying to
emergency
get
too.
to the bottom of. Right? That's the one I'm trying to get the bottom of.
This is going to be it for those
makes your obsession.
For listeners who just don't know, download previous episodes, watch previous episodes, but definitely in season 5, episode 1, Dean was on. Watch that episode. It's great. It's hilarious. But Kristen, thank you so much for coming on.
Yes,
we really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're going to probably have you on again because it seems like there was a lot of interaction on the side. And yeah.
Melissa.
Yeah, look at Melissa.
Melissa's loving it. Absolutely. She gets it.
She's on board. Gets it.
She's on board. She supports Team Collins Curry.
Good job trying to keep Curry in line.
Full-time job.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. He
have
a lovely wife.
Never wants us to do it. That's why he keeps bringing it up.
Yeah, of course.
I almost forgot about it. Like he wants our smell in there.
No,
you got it.
Not at all. I'm trying to get to the bottom of this. I need to know why.
Yes.
What's the obsession?
So up next, gents, is the CEO, Jessica Friesen of Gales Gas Company, who is a certified living minimum wage employer. All right, so I think she's just she's getting on now. Well, she's getting on now. We are to be fair, we're 7 minutes before her time, so
we can talk about the Leafs for 7 minutes.
I really don't want to talk about the Leafs for 7 minutes. I'm mentally exhausted. Like, okay, no, Rook wants us to talk about the Leafs for 7 minutes. Okay, we'll talk about the Leafs. Okay, fine.
I'm not exhausted about it all. I'm telling you right now.
I'm exhausted about it.
I was exhausted before we got to overtime.
Is an exorcism, and we all knew yesterday that it was going Game 7. There's no way you thought any other way other than Game 7. It had
now,
to go
Melissa. So Melissa just came up with a great question, just to piggyback on the serious stuff. What is a certified minimum wage, or it's actually living wage employer? And what it is in Niagara, where we are, the Niagara Workforce Planning Board is basically assesses the region and states what it costs for someone to have a living wage. So basically, I think in Niagara right now, it's $18.20 an hour is what they deem as someone needs to make per hour at full-time wages in order to, rent, heat, hydro, water, transportation, that
survive.
Kind of survive.
Yep. Food on the table, reasonable enjoyment in life.
And so if you, as an employer in Niagara, turn around and basically promise that every single person in your organization will get paid a minimum of the living minimum wage, then that's when you turn around and you become a certified living wage employer. That's what that is.
The question is, do you think $24 an hour is a living wage? With inflation,
well, $24 an hour at 40 hours a week is $48,000 a year, right? Yeah. So that's tight. It's still tight.
That's high.
For those listening or watching, there is a website, OntarioLivingWage.ca. You can go there, look at what the living wage is, select by region, and it breaks down. Some, total transparency, they haven't been updated in forever, but looking at November 2021 statistics, just to name a few, Guelph Wellington region, $18.10 per hour, Kingston, $17.75, London, Middlesex, $16.55, Muskoka's $18.55, Niagara region, $18.90, and the list goes on.
That's what they're calling the living wage?
That's it's OntarioLivingWage.ca, Toronto, $22.80 per hour as of November 2021.
All right. I think Jessica's Windsor. Trev, what's Windsor? Elaine wants to know.
Windsor. Sorry, it's not alphabetical.
So about the Leafs, they better kick ass. Game 7.
Game 7 tomorrow night. Hockey night in Canada. We gotta have the advantage.
I was looking that up. I mean,
oops.
I don't. I've been a Leaf fan for a long time, and my nerves can't take it anymore. So
no,
I'm not nervous at all, though. That's the weird thing. I'm not
nervous. I'm stressed.
Are we going live for Game 7? Rook wants to know. I don't know. I don't know if my heart can do that.
Have you seen Steve Dangle? He's watching.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't watched.
He went to 141 beats per minute.
Well,
not drinking, not nothing, just watching. That's what I was like yesterday.
Go ahead, Trev.
So it says it's Chatham, Kent.
Yep,
and it has not been updated since November 2018. And at that point, it was 1633.
Oh no, that's way off. You guys
again, November 2018, right? So like great
Windsor's had some good news as of late too, right?
Updated.
So
Prescott Russell hasn't been updated. There's lots that haven't been updated.
So gents, Jessica is here. She's logged on. She's ready to go. Hey Jessica.
Hey Jess.
How are you? Hey, can you hear us?
I'm good. Yeah, I can hear you. You can hear me?
Oh yeah, perfect.
Awesome. Nice to see you all.
Thanks for joining us on the podcast. So for our listeners and people who are watching us live, Jessica Friesen is the CEO of Gales Gas Company, correct? And we just defined what a certified living wage employer is, and it's obviously a certified rainbow employer, correct, is what your corporation is as well, and that is for the LGBTQ2S+, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, we're a living wage champion, and we are at least to the last time I checked, which was probably a month ago, we were the only petroleum company in Ontario that was certified living wage, and we are the first petroleum company in Canada that was able to obtain the Rainbow Registered accreditation. So I'm pretty proud of both of us.
Cool. So if you want to walk us through your, I mean, some people have not, they're brand new to the podcast, so they might not go all the way back to season 1 and season 2 when we had you on. So I would just, walk through your history, because you didn't start out in the petroleum area.
No. So my company, I'm the third generation owner operator of my company. Can you hear me okay?
It sounds a bit muffled.
It is a little hard to hear.
Is it? Okay.
We'll try. It's okay. Yeah. Usually I had to play with my settings there to Jess.
Yeah, try that gear icon on the screen that you have there at the bottom of the picture window.
Yeah, is this any?
You're getting there.
Okay, great. Awesome.
There you go.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'm the third generation owner operator of Gales Gas Bars and Gales Fuels. And my company has been around since 1967. My grandfather started it. And we are one of the last truly independently owned petroleum organizations in Canada. Not the only one, but there's not many of us left. Myself, I worked in the company since I was a child. Obviously, most family companies are that way. But after high school, I went and obtained my registered nurse's designation, which I still proudly hold. I worked in healthcare for a number of years before I entered back into the company, which was just a really convoluted thing. I had suffered from postpartum depression after the birth of my first child, my son. And when I became pregnant with my second child, I said to my parents and my husband, if you see kind of these triggers, then get me out of the house, intervene basically. And my father took the bull by the horns with that and said, well, I hear you want to get out of the house, and he offered me to come in and just get out of the, like he said, get out of the house a couple times a week and start up his new convenience store division. And I just never looked back. I never went back to healthcare. I kind of got the business bug, I guess. And that was in 2009. And I came in and became the new owner operator in 2014. So for 8 years now, I've been leading the helm.
Awesome.
Good for you. And I think that's really great. Hey, you got our mug.
Nice.
Saw that, eh?
It was good. That was good. Yeah. all our guests. So anyone that's listening, we have a great sponsor, Brand Boulevard, and they give all of our guests, you know, branded merchandise and what have you. So
it's pretty sweet.
How do we get those? How do we get those? I want one.
All right.
Well, I don't know.
I have yours at my house. I continue to try and arrange to get it to you.
I forgot you don't come to Welland, though.
I thought Jill had one.
Yeah.
Here we go. Here we go.
Work from home guy now.
So I just, you know, good for you for speaking up in you know, 2008. We just finished having, you know, my wife on, Kristen, and we had a like 45-minute segment on mental health and the importance of mental health in the workplace and the importance of speaking up and talking and being open. You know, it's crazy, right?
It's so important.
And you know what? And this piggybacks. This is a great, you know, like segue into what you do, and the fact that a big portion of mental health is identity and sexuality, and you being a certified rainbow employer. And you actually just posted something fairly disgusting on your LinkedIn. I saw it. I was very upset that that took place at your place of employment, because I know, I'll let you describe it, but I'll let you go down that road. But I was pretty enraged, and good for you for outing these people. But go ahead, walk us through it.
Yeah, so I'm going to give you a little bit of context first to understand why I do the things that I do with my company's social media feed. My company culture is the most important thing to me. I have 100 employees around that work for me, and I am very cognizant that every day I am making decisions that affects them and their families. And my father always said, you know, you got to make the decision that's going to put bread on everybody's tables. And that's always what I look at, is what is the right decision to ensure that bread keeps going onto everyone's table. And company culture is a huge part of that to me. You know, ensuring that my staff have a safe place to work, that they feel that they have an employer that tries to understand, tries to work with them, and tries to really be a real person, you know. And I say that in a facetious kind of way, but you know, back in the 90s when I was growing up, you always kind of looked at the CEOs or the business owners as these amazing, you know, people that you put up on a pillar, and you know, they've done so much work and everything. And I don't know about everybody else, but I'm just a regular person. I am just a regular person that comes into work every day, and I try to do, you know, the best job I can possibly do and make the most positive impact on my community that I possibly can. And one of the big ways that I really see me executing that is with my employee community, and ensuring that they are treated properly. I am a huge advocate for diversity. I truly believe that we are only as good as our collective whole. There's not one person ever in any board meeting, in any business sense ever, that is the most important person. And that's something that I try to really impress on my employees. We have a service excellence day that we run for all of our new staff quarterly. And that is one of the things that I always say. I am not the most important person in this company. I am probably making the most important decisions because they affect everyone. But at the end of the day, it's every single person in the company that is making the impact that the community is seeing. So you kind of understand where I come from, and how important it is for me to ensure that it's a safe place.
It's a team, a family, right?
It's a team, it's a family. And that's actually a really great point. You know, we're a family company. We're the Gales family company, but it's more than just the Gale family. It is everybody's family. I have husbands and wives that work for me. I have kids of people that worked for my dad that work for me. It's more than just the Gale family. It's really the Gales family, if you will. So I put a post out on our Facebook last night about a really disgusting event that happened.
Disgusting is what it is.
And it happened a couple of days prior. And honestly, I couldn't put a post out because I was literally seeing red that this would happen in one of my sites, that this event was allowed to happen in one of my sites. So what happened was a young man was working, and he happens to be in the LGBTQ community, and he's a great guy. I have a personal relationship with him. You know, we know each other. I just actually talked to him this morning again. And he was, sitting behind the desk. You can see the video. It's on our Facebook. And gentleman, not even a gentleman, I'm not going to call him that. Sorry, a guy walks in, and I'm not going to repeat what he said, but said something really vulgar to the staff member. And then he grabbed a bag of peanuts and he threw it at him. And that guy walked to the back of the store where a woman was standing at our ATM. And when they left, the guy again hurled more homophobic comments to my staff member and proceeded to continue throwing, I think it was 4 or 5 bags of peanuts at him.
4 or 5 items, yeah.
And it's horrible because when I talked to the staff member who doesn't want anything to do with this, he doesn't want any kind of recognition, he just wants it to go away. And I'm sure he's angry, but I don't know what we can say on here. I'm really PO'd, you know.
Oh, you can swear.
You can say pissed off.
Okay,
well,
I'm really pissed. You know, and I am willing to put myself and my company out there in order to make a difference in this world. And one of the things that I know, and I've really really taken hold of in probably the last couple of years, is the fact that I can make a difference as a business owner, as a woman, as a community leader, and I plan on doing that. And this is just one example of that. So I put it out on our Facebook, and I kind of tried to paint a story. I do some writing, so I tried to paint a little bit of a story, and I said, you know, you come into work and you expect it to be a safe place, and you've got a great relationship with management, and then this happens. And why is that okay? This is absolutely disgusting. And the staff member's response to me, because I called him the next day and I said, oh my God, you know, I'm so sorry. Like I was devastated. I was absolutely devastated that this occurred in my business, because it is so far beyond okay to me.
The antithesis of what you want to promote, right?
Exactly. It goes sorry. Anyways, I'm getting upset again.
That's okay. You're right to get upset.
I called him and I said, are you okay? You know, are like, I'm thinking, like, he's a young man. Is he okay? And it was so sad because he said to me, Jess, this is, you don't know how much this happened to me in high school. He said, this is no big deal to me. And I thought, what the hell is wrong with the world? That's what you feel. That's horrible. And that enraged me even more. So I said to him, I got his blessing first to put the video out,
which is key, and that's very nice that you did that.
Yeah, but no, I would never have done something, because I recognize that, you know, if somebody recognized him or recognized the store or whatever, that he could have backlash on it. And that is the last thing
there that doesn't
that is the last thing that I want to do, is cause any more distress for him. And then I really had to sit on it for a day or two, because honest to God, I just, again, it's just so far beyond what is acceptable in my world. And my world is my stores. Every single location is my world, and I will control what happens in those sites, and I will make sure that it is a safe place for all of my employees, period.
And good for you for doing that and taking that kind of stand. I mean, like, it was really interesting to me when I was watching that video. I was just as enraged. I mean, obviously, probably not as much as yourself. I'm not talking, but LGBTQ2S+ rights are just, you know, to me, I don't understand why, to your point, you made a really great, what is wrong with this bloody world? But I noticed that there was no one else in the convenience store, that, you know, like there was no one else around. You know, I was really curious if this person would have acted that same way if, you know, myself or Collins or, you know, someone, you know, any of the, and, you know, Bondo were in line, or Trevor was in line, and would they have said anything? Because I would have thrown, I hate to break it to you, Jess, but I would have owed you probably for a glass door. I would have, I can't stand that stuff. I just don't, it infuriates me, because, you know, for many reasons, right? So, and I want to raise a 2 children, 6 and 4, right? Like in a world that is welcoming, right?
Well, just why do you care? Why do you care so much? Why does it matter? That person chooses to do. Yeah, and you know, Melissa, I don't know if the viewers can see the chat.
Yeah,
but
let's
Melissa's actually, she's made a great point. To make it as safe as possible when you're dealing with the public, but you can't always control what walks through the door. And she's 100%. Absolutely right. And that's what's so infuriating to me. You know, we have the rainbow registered logo on the door. They walked past that logo. So that logo is supposed to let people know that we are an LGBTQ ally, that this is a safe place for my staff, for any customers, for anybody walking in the door. And for that to happen, it goes against everything that I feel is right in this world. And I totally understand that my staff almost member, targeted then, eh? Absolutely, because now they know he works there. And I totally understand that he doesn't want to, you know, come out with it, but I'm angry enough to do it, and I can do it. So I'm going to. Yeah. So I put out a really strong post, and I point blank said, do you know these people? Because quite frankly, I believe they should be charged with assault. You know, they are not welcome in my store, period, ever.
Yeah. And it's got to be, because I know you well enough to go, you know, and just you're you know, you talking right now, like your employees are not employees. They're, like you said, they're family. They're like children, right? Like you treat them like your own. And it would be just absolutely devastating for it to happen to,
really,
you know, even, you know, we've got a smaller team. Our team is a small team of 10, but, you know, but you know, it's another thing too, that what other measures have you taken to put into place? Like, from a group benefits perspective, have you, you know, is there like EAP programs that you've put into place as a CEO to make that more of a family environment, to kind of help navigate?
So we're going to pivot a little bit here and talk more about the living wage stuff.
100%.
So I really started focusing on company culture about 5 years ago, and I wanted to take baby steps because, you know, I didn't know what we could do, what was easy to do, what was hard to do, what was, you know, I didn't know what I should be focusing on, because when you say company culture, it's this huge thing. What does that really mean, right? So we sat down and chatted with all of our management team, and we had a consultant come in, you know, Neil Thornton, Brandon.
Yep. No, very well.
Absolutely fantastic guy. And he
friend of the show.
Yeah, great. Yep, absolutely. And he came in and he helped us out to really put together company values, our mission and our vision statement, and really kind of hone in on what was important for my staff. And so we started taking baby steps in that direction. Our company vision was formalized. It's fueling Niagara for the next 50 years. And it's obviously a pun on petroleum. But it also, it really resonates with me, because it really means that every decision that we are making, that I am making, is the right decision for 50 years from now. It's not the right decision for tomorrow necessarily. It's not the right decision for next year. I'm looking at longevity. I'm looking at, you know, if one of my children chooses to come into the company and be a 4th generation, how am I setting them up for success, and everyone else? So we were already going down this route of making
vision, mission, values. And then I think I just saw a post or an email or something about living wage. And I remember I was going on vacation. It was March of 19, and I was going on vacation, and I sent it to my HR manager, and I said, hey, can you do me a favor and just look this up? I've never heard of it before, but depending on what the gap is from where we are and where we need to be, then this might be something that we can do. And I'm very proud to say that in August of 19, we became a living wage champion, the first one in Ontario in the petroleum sector. So the way that breaks down for us is we are in the 1890 per hour region, and we do it as a portion of benefits and then wages as well. So that's the way that it really whittled down for us. Because we are a champion, we make sure that contractors that we work with are also paying a living wage. So that's kind of what sets aside a leader, a living wage leader, and a living wage champion. Yeah, it's one of those things that it's not a small commitment. I'm not going to lie. No. It's a big commitment. You really need to make sure that you can manage it, because you're talking big dollars. And when you're talking business, you have to talk fiscal, because you have to make sure that you are sustainable. So as much as it's nice for me to want to say, I want to do this for my staff, is it the fiscally responsible thing to do? And that is always the question every year when that renewal comes up, is it still the fiscally responsible thing to do? Because if I all of a sudden go out of business, then nobody's being paid. So it was August of 19 that I committed to that. And then COVID hits in March of 20. And we are an essential business. Which sounds great, but it really is a double-edged sword, because as much as we could, I could have all of my sites open, there wasn't enough traffic out there for that. And literally, I need cars at the pumps in order to ensure that my business keeps running. So I had to make some pretty hard decisions. And at the high point, I had shut down a quarter of my sites and laid off a quarter of my staff. Wow. And I think that lasted for a month or two. So in the grand scheme of things, when you're talking 24 months to only have that big portion happen for 2 months, I really, over COVID, I did everything I could to make sure that I employed as many people as possible. And there are employers out there, and call it foolish, call it what you will, but I probably made some decisions that were not the right one for my business necessarily, but they were the right one for my staff. And 80 years from now, I'm going to be more proud of the lives that I helped than the longevity of, or I guess the revenue coming in. If you understand what I mean, it was more important. It's not all bottom line. I mean, it is as well, because again, you got to keep it sustainable, right? But I was able to navigate in some ways, and I believe that being a living wage provider did help me through that time. So if there's one thing that I can say to your viewers is the one thing that COVID really taught us is the importance of supporting local, and supporting your local butcher and baker, and all of those little guys. The Costcos of the world and the Walmarts of the world, they're owned by shareholders. These are not people who are putting their blood, sweat, and tears into the businesses. These are not people who even meet the people that are working for them. Meanwhile, I am. I know I have met every single person in this company, if they have done the service excellence day, because I am on that call as well every time. You know, it means something that I can go to a site and say, hey, John, or hey, Kim, or hey, Kevin. You know, to me, that gives me a good feeling in my heart. And that is more important to me than any paycheck.
No, and I think that's no. Yeah, but no one wants to hear us talk. Anyways, it's totally fine. No, literally,
I do have a question for you though, just based on sustainability. Obviously, you know, I'm sure you're getting all kinds of flack based on what the pumps are showing right now.
Yep.
I'm sure you're going to get into that a little bit, and about the carbon tax that just came into effect April 1, or the increase. What's your position in terms of sustainability with a move or a transition to electric vehicles?
So electric vehicles are here. They're here to stay, and there's a place for them. I am watching that, and I have been watching that for a very long time. My opinion is that they are going to take a big chunk out of this market, but it's not going to happen as fast as the media seems to portray it will. You know, they have mandates in place saying that, you know, I think in California by 2035, you're not going to be able to buy an internal combustion engine vehicle. In Ontario, from the conversations that I have had, and I am not an expert on this subject by any stretch of the imagination, but I know a little bit more than the average person. First of all, the hydro grid is not capable of supporting that number of vehicles. But there's a whole other side of this that the media is not covering yet. And I wish they would, because there's too much out there saying that EVs are environmentally friendly. And that's not really the case. The batteries in EVs are, first of all, the wreckers don't know how to handle the actual retirement of a vehicle, or whatever they call it. You know, when a vehicle is at end of life, they do not know how to handle that battery because it is so toxic. Those batteries right now, anyways, they last hundreds, if not thousands of years. So whereas I believe it's 85% of a traditional vehicle is actually reusable, that is not the case with electric vehicles. So I think that there's a lot of miscommunication, or not miscommunication, there's just a lot of, the media sensationalizes what they want to sensationalize. And I don't know that anyone is really, and by anyone, I mean the big guys, you know, your CBCs, NBCs, whatever. I don't know that they're giving the full story yet. And I wish that they would, because people don't know these things, and it's important. So
they never do anymore. They only tell one side.
Exactly. Yeah. So for my company with EVs, yes, I'm watching them. Am I worried about them? I'm not worried about them, because my company is very diverse. I deliver product, I have convenience stores, and I have the retail side of things. So when we're talking EVs, we're really just talking retail, which is only a portion of my business. So there's that comfort, and thank God for my dad and my grandfather for that.
Diversification, right?
Yep. And you know, I'm also looking at other ways of how we can diversify more. But also, one of my main focuses in the last 5 years has been on environmental responsibility. So, you know, talking very plainly, I'm a petroleum woman. You know, I deal with fossil fuels, and there is contamination that happens at every gas station in the world. It's just the reality of things. When you, you know, over pump your jerry can or something and it spills out, that's contamination. So
I do that every time I fill up the lawnmower.
Well, and you look at boats, right? I couldn't believe it, but I was up in Muskoka a couple of years ago, had to fill up a jet ski that I rented, and they just fill it up until it pours into the lake. It's incredible. It blew my mind. But anyways, my focus is on renovating my current sites to make sure that I am as environmentally responsible within my company as I possibly can be. And this it falls in line with my company culture and everything. You know, I am a very moral individual, if you want to say that. You know, I'm very cognizant that the decisions I make today, I have to live with for the next 40, 50, probably that's it, years. So what I did was I started looking at my sites, and some of them had the old single wall steel tanks. And while those tanks are still legal, they are tested every 2 years to make sure that they are all, you know, fine and good and there's no leaking and anything like that. They have a bad stigma about them, and insurance companies don't love them anymore. Now we have double wall fiberglass tanks in the industry. So what I looked at was I had 9 sites that had these old steel tanks, and I set out to do a big project and replace all of them. The tanks, the lines, the pumps at some of the sites, do an entire cleanup again, so that I know that at this point in time, that site is as clean as a gas station can possibly be. Yeah. And of those 9, prior to COVID, starting in September of 17, I had done 6 of them, which is, we're talking huge dollars. We're talking big capital going into that. Yeah. And there's no ROI on that, right? No. So I had, my general contractor actually thought I was absolutely stark raving mad when I said, this is what I'm doing, because, you know, he knows the cost of doing that. Now he's the one that was making the money, because of course he's doing the job, right? So whatever I say, he'll do. But, you know, it was, I looked at one, okay, I'm going to save some money in insurance. It's just a bit, but, you know, might make me feel a little bit better. But 2, I now know that those are brand new tanks down there, and I can confidently say everything is fine with that site. Now, I'll tell you, it killed me every time they took a tank out of the ground, because they were all pristine.
Oh, really?
I'm not even kidding. They looked like brand spanking new.
Can you get anything on the resale market, or?
No, because they held petroleum and you can't reuse them. So
not even another like gas station can no?
Oh, no way. No, I mean, would you put a used gas tank into your gas station and say that it's perfect and nothing's ever going to happen? Nobody's going to do that.
You're talking.
So what are they going to do to that when you
you're talking to Brandon.
Decommission it? You have to decommission. What do you do with the old tanks and all that when you take them out?
I mean, my general contractor takes care of that, but there is a hazardous waste recycling plant or something that they take it to, and I pay to have it. It's probably crushed and recycled, but no, I just pay and pay and pay. So, but it's the right thing to do, and that's what's important. And you know, I'm personally very proud of what I've accomplished, what we've accomplished, and yeah, then I get to talk to people like you about it and try to educate people a little bit.
No, that's great.
That's awesome.
No, I mean, and all right, so we'll talk on a you know, a lot of people will be wondering, and but let's, instead of going local and micro on the next question, let's talk macro. Let's talk the macroeconomics of fuel prices. So, you know, we'll touch on, because just to go to the nitty gritty is just pointless, because it's everywhere. So it's a lot easier for, like, it's, you know, someone who's listening and watching us in Vancouver right now is experiencing.
They don't want to know about the Niagara market.
They don't care. They don't care. But but being a CEO of a petroleum company, and to be fair, an independent petroleum company, right? So, like, how do the geopolitical forces right now, maybe national forces, i.e. carbon tax, like, can you explain that? You know, how are they affecting petroleum prices?
So people need to understand, first of all, the amount of tax that you pay on a liter of, let's just pick on gasoline. Okay, so right on top of the price that I buy, and let's say that I buy a liter of gasoline for $1. That's my product price. Okay,
cost of goods sold.
Yes, you have excise tax of 10 cents. You have road tax of 14.7 cents. I might have those two backwards. I always confuse those two. You have carbon tax that just went up on April 1st again, of 11.05 cents per liter. And then on top of all of that, you have HST. So you're taxed on your tax. So when
that logically makes complete sense, though, you know.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, of course, right?
Right, like you tax the tax, of course.
I think you weren't able to tax a tax, but anyways.
Interesting, right? I know. So crude costs, taxes, and refinery margins are typically the biggest portion of that pie. So when I say crude costs, it's the actual, you know, how much it costs to make a barrel of oil, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got your refinery margin on it. So that has nothing to do with me whatsoever. It's just what they mark things up in order to sell it to me. Then you've got your taxes. And that's the biggest portion of the pie. Your retail margin is actually the smallest portion. Then you start talking global supply and demand. And, you know, it's interesting, back when COVID first hit, and I do wonder if it's what's pushing the prices as high, on top of actual COVID itself and the war with Russia and everything. But when COVID first hit, everything stopped all of a sudden, and petroleum demand plummeted. And all of a sudden, we were actually in a really interesting predicament, because global storage was actually at risk of being completely full. I mean, who would have ever thought that was possible? But that was the God's honest truth.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, at one point during COVID, the crude future prices, people were paying people to take their future
They
crude.
Absolutely were. They absolutely were. Imagine
Insane.
that.
Crazy.
So, and the real problem with that is, when you talk about shutting down a refinery, it's not like a flipping of a switch. When you shut down a refinery, and this is again what I've been told, because I don't do it, but when you shut down a refinery, it takes days, if not weeks, to get it back up. So these were real problems back then. And I think what caused part of that, from my research, what caused part of what we're going through now, is that they cut production to the amount that now there's a backlog. And so now we're at a place where global supply is low and demand is increasing, because the world is starting to open up because of COVID. So all of a sudden you have a commodity that people are fighting tooth and nail to get at, especially because of Ukraine and Russia, you know, with the sanctions that are put on Russia, and the fact that the world is cutting off Russia's supply. That is a huge thing. So that's just decreasing the supply even more. And all of these things are adding to, are resulting in petroleum prices that we've never seen before.
It's like a perfect storm, right? Like, I mean, you've got the war, you've got the pandemic, you've got the increase in tax. And I mean, even if you go back, I don't know, 18 months to 2 years, you've got that pipeline, right? The Keystone pipeline. So I think everything contributes to it. And it's just, you know, really finding ourselves in a perfect storm. And I think, you know, before too long, obviously things are going to have to level off a little bit. Hopefully sooner than later.
You know, they're saying that things are supposed to be increasing until at least Q3, which would be beginning of July, I guess.
Yeah.
And then we'll see. After that, it all depends on what happens with Ukraine and Russia. But you know, there's other things to consider that are going to be permanent, or you know, as permanent is. You know, the carbon tax goes up every April 1st. And it is going to go up every April 1st. I can tell you what it will be in 2030. In 2030 on gasoline, we're going to be going, so right now we're paying 11.05 cents. In 2030, we will be paying 37.43 cents just for the federal carbon charge. So, you know, people should really be asking what's going on with that. What's the point of it?
Well, I think, you know, like, you know, Jessica, like you're, I mean, I'm definitely would consider myself, I wouldn't consider myself an environmentalist, because I don't want to take that away from someone who does that for a living, but definitely someone who's very conscientious on the environment. I mean, I'm waiting for my electric vehicle. So I really liked your picture in the paper of you putting in electric car chargers. That, you know, that's what part of your business plan. I saw that. And acknowledging that is the way of the future and diversifying yourself. But then on top of that, but of course that's delayed. I have, you know, solar panels on my home. I've got LED light bulbs. But the fact of the matter is, maybe if you know the statistic worldwide, you know, Canada is still one of the top petroleum producing countries in the world. And it represents, if you talk to economists or fund managers, large fund managers like your Fidelities of the world, your SLGIs and CIs of the world, it represents 10 to 12% of Canada's GDP. Like, and to put it into perspective, the GDP of Canada is like the income of Canada. It's the goods that we produce, and that's how we make our money, and that's how we get our taxes and stuff like that, right? So that's key for people to understand. And worldwide consumption of petroleum, gasoline, is projected to increase until 2035. And did I read that right, Jessica? Like worldwide, like, so even though Canada might be going more, you know, carbon neutral, which is, you know, I fully support, but you know, I guess where I'm trying to get at is that there's people like you in this industry that do pay employees at a living wage, that do respect their rights, that, you know, do produce a safe product relatively worldwide. And there are countries that, well, on many issues, that don't do that. So I guess to shut the world off of one of our main exports, am I right? Is world consumption supposed to increase?
That is what I've heard, but I haven't seen any numbers to support that.
Okay. So,
but I think that people need to understand that passenger vehicles are just one portion of the vehicles that are either on the road or on the you know, on the oceans or in the sky. And
transportation's huge.
Transportation's huge, yes. Yeah, and passenger vehicles are only one small portion of it.
Yeah. And so, but also too, you need to understand that the infrastructure, I mean, shed some light on the cost that you as an independent, I guess, what would be now an independent charging company, right? What would the cost be? What's the cost to put those chargers into your to kind of help you diversify? Your face says it all.
Well, you know, it's too much. It's too much, and you know, I don't have that number on me right now, Brandon, unfortunately.
Yeah, fair.
But the government grants that were in place, and I don't know that they still are, but that were in place were not enough to help with that cost. And more so than even that, and one of the real reasons that I shy away from putting in a charger right now is because it takes too long. You come to my site and you want to get in and out. You don't want to be at a gas station. You don't want to be at a convenience store. And so it's that turnover, right? Right now, it's taking half an hour, 40 minutes at a high end charging station in order to get that battery full. Why do I want to put something in that takes that long? I can have like what does that mean? I can have 20 customers a day if I've got a lineup going. So until they get a little faster, or a little bit more universal, even, because you've got your Teslas and you've got your whatever everybody else's
General Motors, Ford, Chrysler, yep.
Yeah, the Leaf and things like this. Until I can say, okay, I'm going to put in this charger and it's going to take you 5 to 10 minutes to charge, and I can do a Tesla, I can do, this one and that one, and I can do all of them. Why do I want to entertain that?
Business model isn't there yet, eh?
No, not for independently owned operator like me. If you're a Petro-Canada of the world or an Esso of the world and you have shareholders and you can budget for this, then that's great, because there is definitely room in the market for this. But for me, it's a different
ballpark,
story.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, and I think it just goes to show you, and that kind of piggybacks on to my point, which is then if we are a G7 country, we have the GDP, and we are significantly putting money, government grants, and as minimum as they are, and they're not maybe covering everything, but it's one of those things where what do you think the opportunity is for an emerging market like India or China or South Africa or a third world country, like on putting in this infrastructure, if we in North America can't even do it properly? What are your thoughts on that? Like that, which is why probably petroleum is still around, going to be around for, quite some time until this infrastructure gets built out properly.
As important as decreasing our carbon footprint is, and it is, and I don't want anyone to think that I don't believe that's important. Having bread on your table is more important.
Right.
So we are a first world country. We have the luxury of having to debate this. There are too many third world nations that this isn't even, it's not even, the thought of an electric vehicle is so far beyond what they are worried about when they are literally worried about where their next meal is coming from. And, as Canadians, we have a luxury of being in such a wonderful country and such a stable country. And I think we forget about that a lot because we take it for granted.
Nope, I totally agree with that. But nope, and you shed on some. You said you've shed some great points and shed a light on some key pieces of, I hope, people who are employers and what you've done and the steps that you've taken with your small business and moved it in the right direction. I'm just very conscientious of your time, and because we've asked for, you've been on close to an hour, so I know you've got a business to run.
Yeah.
So,
great job.
but we would love to have you on again.
Great.
So to anyone that's listening and watching, obviously, Jessica's a friend of the show and a friend of ours. She's been on a bunch of times. So if there's any questions, please email at info@professionalinsight.ca. And we can get those over to Jessica and then maybe compile them all and have her on again. And we can go from there. But Jess, thanks very much again for coming on the show. It was great. It was a great chat. Niagara. It was awesome.
Thank you for having me on, guys. And if I can just do a couple of takeaways for your viewers, it's not a cliche. Support local. It's critical, and diversity matters. People matter. Different people matter, and just be kind. Be kind in the world.
I'm happy to see that you saying that.
Yeah.
That's great.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks Jess. Really appreciate it. Always enjoy having her on, guys? Like, she's just such a wealth of knowledge, and to come from healthcare and then to then take over. Yes, it's the family business, but that is like that's a 180 going from being an RN and then turning around and running a petroleum company, right? Like
it makes our wanting to shit in Trevor's RV seem pretty low.
Still, yeah, I know. I mean, it really is,
like
right?
You know, like it's.
But at the end of the day, you know, goals are goals, right? It is what it is.
Yeah. I was happy to see her snow brush in her office, though. So that means it's not in her car anymore, right?
There you go. That's good. That's good, right? So again, and then up next to wrap up the show will be again for everyone that's listening, please like and subscribe and to join so that you know, share and care would be great. But we're up next. We'll be talking about just again piggybacking on the employer, positive workplaces, certified workplaces, and that kind of stuff. We're going to go to a recruiter, a professional recruiter, Patricia Brick, and there she is. Can you hear us? Okay, Patricia. Check your settings.
Mic check.
Yeah, your microphone. That's happened to a couple people. So under the play around with the audio input.
Go to the gear on the bottom right.
Yeah, does it work? No.
Sorry, Trevor, forgot my light.
Oh, did you turn it on there, Josh?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's
Makes
see.
A difference with the light, though, eh? Like the light.
It does. Can you? No, can't hear you now. Do you have any earphones? Like any earbuds? No.
It's got to be the settings, right?
It's got to be the settings. Yeah. Try logging off and logging back on again. That usually does work. And then I've flipped all my settings to default, so that is what got rid of
Google Chrome.
You can use Google Chrome if you've got it.
Okay,
so.
Perfect. Yeah,
that's okay. We're good. We've got some time. We're ahead of schedule, which is awesome.
Well,
so,
you want to talk about the Leafs again?
We can talk about the Leafs again. We can we can kind of pivot and talk about the Leafs. And,
we can talk about Montreal. They won first overall, right? They got first overall. There's a glimmer of hope for that team again.
And the draft is actually happening. The
in
draft
Montreal.
Is actually...
No glimmer of hope.
Enough, they got first overall with the draft in Montreal.
Oh, here we go.
Throw them a bone. Throw them a bone.
So Trev, you must be happy. Okay, let's see.
I'm a quietly reserved Habs fan.
Oh, yeah.
I don't flap my gums like Leafs fans and like some other Habs fans.
We don't flap our guns. We defend our team.
Leafs fans have been flapping their gums all year long.
Trev, you want to try and troubleshoot Patricia?
Here, try to...
On the mic?
No, there's nothing. I don't know. We can't even see it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, she has a Yeti mic too.
The gear icon, you've got your microphone, your camera, all that icon. There's an audio tab, and then your audio input and your audio output. Is it set to default?
We could talk about how bad the Blue Jays are right now. Like, oh my God, what is going on? Yankees are
bad.
Their ass.
How bad the Blue Jays are?
They're just tumbling down to 500 right now.
Yeah,
they can't hit.
Too many big bats at the beginning of the year.
I think Charlie Montoya is in trouble if they don't turn around.
We'll give her 1 minute. No problem.
Yeah,
I think they're going to axe them?
Trying to do like external microphone built in.
Jays fans do not like him.
Who? Sorry?
Montoya.
Charlie Montoya, the Blue Jays coach.
Thanks, Elaine. Really appreciate you guys listening and following. Thank you. Thanks,
Elaine.
Yeah, appreciate
Good stuff.
So I think just let's talk about what's coming up in a couple of weeks. We've got
second round guests. Of the Maple Leafs.
Yeah, I hope we're still talking about the Leafs in by our next show, which is going to be recording on the. I want to make sure we're going
27th.
Live on Friday the 27th.
There's going to be a lot of Game 7s too this year. I think a lot of them.
Yep,
crazy.
What was I going to say? With regards to that, we've got our Vin Diesel, our buddy Vin Diesel, our very own Vin Diesel, Carlo DeSantis will be on the show to talk about renovating and renovations. Yeah, right. No, he's got like a deep radio voice. He's really good. And there goes Collins, just gets up. Okay. And then you've got Brandy Henderson is coming back on the show to talk about the importance of web presence. She is the co-owner and co-founder of Onera Group and Reveal Magazine. So she'll be coming on. And yeah, we've got a couple of other topics that we are researching right now to make sure that they're good to go for the next couple of weeks. I know, Trev, you've got a couple good ones. So we'll tackle that yeah, at a later date. So that'll be great.
I love how we have so many heavy hitting women, eh?
Great. Isn't it awesome?
Yeah.
Isn't it awesome? Yeah, we do. So we've got and that's the plan.
Boy, a lot of teas.
Oh,
you know what? Why don't we bring this up while we're waiting here? Because I sent something to you guys about the stress test. They're already talking about ways to improve the market because the market's cooled so bad. So
you don't say.
Didn't we talk about this? They're going to raise interest rates. It's going to cool. They're going to start lowering interest rates again. What do you think, Trev?
100%. 100%. They're going too fast, too quick.
Oh, they just cooled the market. It's crazy.
Just offsetting themselves though with the interest with the stress test, right? Like
everybody thinks they know better than the people with the boots on the ground. So
and
they're going to do what they want.
Transactions, like that's a lot of land transfer money they lose. Like it's just straight in the government's hands, right? Especially in GTA.
Yeah, typically.
I mean, I was talking to a buddy of all of ours, but you know, I'll again, unless he's on the show, I'll just kind of keep it. But he was just saying he works for one of the banks, and he goes the way he has to hit sales targets, but also he gets a percentage of his of the interest that he books for mortgages, right? Like I'm talking super high end mortgages, like several $1 million mortgages.
Just said too? She's renewed at 419.
Yeah. Melissa's just renewing at 419. And
Melissa,
at half that.
Sorry. My advice on that, obviously that's a fixed rate that you're looking at. If I were you, I would consider looking shorter term. Look, 1, 2, 3 year term. Our interest rates are very cyclical to what's happening with U.S. federal elections. We've got a U.S. federal election coming up this November. It's a midterm year, 2024 being the next year that the presidential ticket is on the ballot. So you're going to see some softening in those interest rates. They're moving very aggressively. Is it worth walking in at 419 right now, or potentially going with a 1, 2, 3 year option? That's going to put you under the 4% mark for the most part, with a small handful of some lenders. So
see, I wonder what they're thinking right now, because the market they're saying went up 25 in January, February, but they say it's still going to even out a 15% increase from last year throughout the whole year. And those prices are still kind of maintaining, just slightly down. So the aggression people had in January, February is not there. It's just reduced a bit, but it's still selling.
Yeah. Well, and the point is like the supply and demand piece, we don't have to worry that the value of things is going to come crashing down. It's just all that's happening with these rising rates is it's hurting the demand side, right? Again, another issue that our government continues to attack demand.
Yeah, and I mean,
adding their books for profits. There's all kinds of stuff happening here.
Yeah, I mean, that's another topic maybe for another show, but I mean, there's a lot of the platforms are, and I think one of you has kicked us something, right? Just in terms of what the platforms are, at least from the provincial perspective here, right?
Yeah.
In terms of getting some.
I just think it's going to be an interesting year because it looks like everyone want to cool it. It cooled too quick. Now they want to speed it back up a little bit, and then.
I think we can tackle that on. We can tackle that on our next episode. But we got. I think Patricia is. She's good on. She's switched to.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Nice.
All right. I switched my computer, so I'm on my work computer now. So
there we go.
Everybody. Yeah, it'll work. So I wanted to first start off to say thank you to Kristen and Jess. I am definitely by far and away the least qualified person to join the podcast. Kristen, thank you so much for all the work that you do specific to our healthcare heroes here in Ontario, getting in front of of folks that might be experiencing burnout. If we can do anything to mitigate that the departure, that kind of migration away from, let's say, the emergency room into doing Botox for people as a nurse, that's fantastic. And Jessica, you gave me, my arm hair was standing straight up when you were talking about that experience that your employee had. And so I think it's incredible that you are the advocate that you are for all employees, but especially folks that belong to that community, because we know the statistics on that. We know that representation in the market force is not is a little bit lower for some folks, and it's because of stuff like this. So super cool. Thank you to both you guys. And then I wanted to chime in on the RV question, and I'm going to follow up with another question.
Yes.
As Brendan knows, but as you guys might not know, I'm from Toronto, and while I live in Niagara now in a normal sized house, I lived in a shoebox previously, as did my husband. And so what are your thoughts? Is there a square footage requirement? Like, what if you're in a bachelor apartment, or if you're in like 500 square feet, 395 square feet? Is the onus on the guest to maybe excuse themselves to the lobby bathroom, go downstairs to the Tim Hortons? Is it a square footage issue, or is it something specific to this area having wheels? Like, what is it? Because I have a personal story about it and what I think is good manners.
Okay, so
yeah, so it started as repairs and cleaning. Repairs and cleaning have to be done by the owner.
Okay.
Those, which when you have a normal plumbing system like you do in a home, even if you're on well and septic, still, has a little more, we'll call it luxury when it comes to maintaining, versus when you're in an RV, it's literally a holding tank.
Okay.
So
what if they offset that by bringing a really nice bottle of wine, though? Like, is there a gift? Is there a housewarming gift you could be like, listen, we're having Mexican tonight. Let me spend this really, like, let's get in front of this. I know that this is going to be some time on the back end, no pun intended, for you.
Buy me a new RV.
Wow. Yeah, I guess it just comes down to you attach to bowel movements, and apparently Trevor is very disgusted by it.
We're just having
do it, and
we just established we're having
thing. It's natural.
You damage it, just replace it.
Trevor, let's say it's your condo then, and you're living in 400 square feet. You have Brendan over, and he says, "I gotta hop in here." Is the polite thing to do to excuse yourself to the lobby bathroom? Does he run across the street to the Burger King? Like, if you're in a confined environment, is that something that you would consider?
Because a fan's only so strong, right? Like, I mean, let's be honest. Confined.
Shit break, man. You go home.
That's what Lysol's for. Lysol. Purell. Lysol. Trevor would make him go home, I think.
In that apartment, you've got normal plumbing. So have at it.
Okay.
Oh, all right. Wow.
You plug it unplugged.
Maybe you buy a better RV, then it's got a better toilet in it,
Oh, so
chops it
Melissa,
up, burns it up, and all that. Like, spend some money.
Hilarious.
Get the moths out of the wallet there, buddy.
And this is a true indication of the how great these women that come on our podcast are. They're willing to partake in our stupid sense of humor. Hey, Patricia's supporting the mug too.
Nice.
She's supporting the professional insight mug. Thanks very much for that.
You got your gift. I like that mug. That's nice.
But now, Patricia, what do you? So just tell everyone about your career and your career path. Obviously originally from Toronto, worked for some pretty big recruiting companies, but yeah, go ahead.
Sure. So I got a degree that I don't really use with any, well, I don't use at all. But important to have, I suppose. And then I worked for a developer for a little bit. And then I I worked for a couple of pretty significant recruitment agencies. So just a bit of background on that. These are companies that essentially are an extension of a company's HR department. So we would go and, let's say for really tricky searches or very niche type searches, go
like headhunting?
Exactly, yeah. And then more recently, I've transitioned into an in-house role. So I work for a tech company now, but prior to that, I worked for a pharma consultancy, specifically as a recruiter. So interviewing lots of people every day.
What'd you do with the developer?
Very little. Like I was fresh out of school. To be honest, this was like 15 years ago. It was like, it started as an admin job, and then I kind of sold some units, and then I bopped around and yeah, I don't know, nothing.
so as a yeah, because Jeff is always looking for people for
I was paperwork. No, like I wouldn't hire me now. Like I don't know how I got this
job. But a lot of questions we get all the time for different industries, and you being a recruiter, it's really good because you're bipartisan. So you've interviewed for all sorts of sectors and industries. I guess we can break it down to the social media landscape, the do's, the don'ts, the what to watch out for, like the LinkedIn of the world, and then maybe like your Facebooks and Instagram and Twitter of the world, but then, and also CV and, your traditional way of applying and flipping it into the proverbial, black hole of a job application. So if you want to walk through that.
So give us the good and the bad, the ugly.
Oh, there's a lot of ugly out there right now on both sides, on candidate and hiring sides. It is a little bit of the Wild West right now. Folks probably hear, recruiters and companies bemoaning the fact that it is a very, it's a kind of a crazy hiring landscape right now. In terms of LinkedIn, in terms of everything, common sense is key and keen, and it's what you should really kind of focus on. So for LinkedIn, like make sure you got a nice picture of yourself. Maybe not one from like 15 years ago. I am victim of this myself, this is the shoemaker with no shoes. My LinkedIn photo is quite old, and when I met my not my current boss, but my previous boss, she was like, "Oh, your hair's a little shorter." I was like, "Ooh, like so is my lifespan," because that was from 15 years ago. Like so updated. It's nice to know who people are talking, who they're talking to. Other thing is, make sure what is on there is proofread. Make sure that you don't have any spelling mistakes. I know this seems pretty intuitive, but for a lot of recruiters that are going to be reaching out to people directly, that's your first impression. You've got your 20 seconds to be like, here's who I am, here's what I do. Make sure that if you're in kind of a niche industry, make sure that you include that verbiage, that lexicon that we would be looking for specifically, and take the time, invest in building out your profile so it holistically describes like what you do in that company. And that's going to be very, very helpful. And I can guarantee you'll have recruiters knocking on your door in your inbox if you invest that time. The other thing I would mention too, and I say this kind of selfishly or Machiavellian, is I do reach out to people every day for roles. And a lot of the time, people will just ghost. They won't answer you. It takes 2 seconds to respond back, even if you're not interested. My thought process is, why wouldn't you always take a call or take an email or ask for a job description? Because you never know, right? I think it's pleasant to respond and say, hey, I'm not interested at this time. Take the job description, noodle it around. Think of, if you have someone in your network that may be looking for a new role or maybe has been out of the job market, maybe they're on mat leave and they, their office is requiring them to go back into the office 5 days a week. And that's not really what they're into. The idea of social media, the idea of LinkedIn is to network. So even if the job maybe isn't for you, share it, put some thought behind it. Say, oh, you know, I know Sally's, you know, recently lost her job or is looking for a change, or this might be, you know, so put your kind of your thinking cap on and put yourself in that capacity, and the recruiter will love you for always and ever. Life is long. You never know as well. You know, while things may be great now, maybe you are looking for a change in the future, and to have that kind of rapport, that initial connection can be really helpful.
Patricia, I've got a question for you.
Sure.
I have a LinkedIn account like I think all the guys here do, and I hate my LinkedIn account. Okay. I just think it needs to be spruced up and all that. Would you recommend a copywriter is something you should use if you're trying to write your own material and you're just not a linguist, and to try to make it look a little bit more rounded? Or do you think it should be something that's more reflective of your own skills?
I think if you do it yourself, that's probably best. I think that's probably the most authentic, to, you know. That being said, especially for folks that maybe have been outside of the labor market, again, I'll use the mat leave example, or someone that's new to Canada, or maybe someone that's fresh out of school. There are a variety of resources. They're all free for the most part. They're covered by the federal government, provincial government, where you can bring a copy of your resume in and say, hey, like I'm looking at kind of maybe getting this to look a little bit better. I'm struggling. I'm experiencing this barrier to employment. Can you help me? And so that's a service that's often offered for folks that are maybe struggling to find a new role. But if that's not the case, I would say absolutely try to kind of beef it out yourself, and because that will be authentic to yourself, and will have an idea in terms of, you know, who you are, and the way that, you know, that you communicate, right? As well as, you know, I think when you're looking at someone's job description, for example, you can typically highlight, okay, here's where this person places value. This is what they like to do. So that also helps us, you know, when sourcing and reaching out to candidates.
Okay.
What I got a question for you. So, I mean, we have people interacting along the side, Melissa being one of them, and she's just is LinkedIn becoming the new virtual CV? Like, is that going to be the lead going forward? Like, should people really start, I mean, if they haven't already, really paying attention to something like that? Or do you, as a recruiter, look at different things? And then I want to also piggyback that onto the don'ts for people just starting. So, but go ahead.
Yeah, I think, you know what, if you are looking for a role, whether you're currently employed or not, having both is really, really important. So making sure that your resume is, you've sunk some thought into that to make sure it's not just word vomit, and there's no chronology and, you know, God forbid, spelling mistakes, grammatical issues. So making sure that is tight, that's succinct, that you're being very clear about how you want to express yourself, and why, you know, you'd be a fit for this position if you're applying directly to a role. So what's important is to really kind of, I would say, identify those points of transferability that you would have to a job description. For those that are perhaps more passive in the market, having a LinkedIn is very, very important, again, because with a lot of people working from home, headhunting has changed. 10, 15 years ago, everyone was in the office. And so if a recruiter wanted to reach out to somebody, they would just look up, you know, they'd dial for dollars, they'd look up the company, they'd find your extension, or they'd, you know, talk to, you know, find you, and then they'd call you and present the opportunity. Those phone numbers and those emails aren't necessarily accessible right now. Folks are working from home a lot of the time. So having your LinkedIn out there, having your socials out there with that level of accessibility is really, really important. So I know it's a pain in the neck. It's hard to kind of talk about yourself and really kind of quantify necessarily what you've done or what you're doing in your current role, but take the time, invest in it, be thoughtful in terms of how you lay it out, and how you want to present yourself, right, to the world. Exactly. Yeah. The other kind of tip I would mention as well is that, you know, let's say, because often roles change and they evolve over time, include that. You know, do that 6-month or even yearly check-in on your LinkedIn. If you've been in a job for a year, just say, wow, like this, how I've described this position or how I've described my position in the company has changed. Maybe it's not just in title, but it's in responsibilities, it's in areas of interest. So make sure you include those as well, both just from a networking perspective, but also so recruiters, when we're doing our keyword searches, when we're running a mile a minute, we can find you easier and better kind of titrate our search and our questions to you. And in terms of the other socials, that's really up to you. There are companies now, a lot of third-party reference and background check companies that, in addition to running professional references and your Canadian criminal record, they'll offer as a service to run your socials as well. So they'll say, okay, here's your given name, and then they'll go through your Twitter and make sure there's nothing, egregious, making sure that there's nothing, offensive, that especially if you're in a client-facing type of roles, whether it's a salesperson or a marketing person, that there isn't something nasty that you've written or shared in the past. It's interesting. I don't know how much that's going to catch on, but it's especially if you're in a client-facing role, it's a Google away, right? So be very cognizant, be aware. We've all said and done things that are a little silly. I'm very, very glad that cell phone cameras weren't as great as they were back in my university and high school days. We would not be employed at the moment if they were. But you know what? Do a sweep, right? Especially if you're applying for roles. And this can be, it can even be political involvement, right? Like, it's just, you want to come across as professional as possible. So go through, clean up your socials if there's anything on there that you think might be problematic. And yeah, I would say kind of limit any kind of excessive social posting.
I've got a question for you. Do you find now that things have shifted in a lot of markets to a more employee-driven market, meaning that the employees are able to be a little bit more choosy about their employers? And I don't know if that ties into this millennial generation and how it's been dealing with the millennials.
So the great question. To be honest, it's really industry specific. So are you a nurse with IV initiation skills? Are you a Java developer? Then absolutely, you can write your own ticket in this economy. But there are other industries that, there's always going to be winners and losers, especially in recessions or pandemics or all the other craziness that we've been looking down the barrel of recently. And so that's not necessarily the case for some of the other industries or these other roles. But definitely, if you're, again, like, for example, in my previous company, I worked for a healthcare consultancy, and they hired a lot of nurses, and it's very, very difficult to find the types of nurses that we were looking for with the specific skill set. So I would routinely be catching these folks in between shifts. There was a lady who was like, hey, can you hold on? And then I heard her order a McDonald's meal, which is, right? But supply and demand. And she had the skills that we needed. She's a shift worker, healthcare hero, all the rest of it. So you can, it really was a candidate market. So I'm going to be like, okay, not what I would do, not what I would expect for necessarily another role, but we're lucky to have her. And she's a great, great nurse. She's awesome. And similarly, if you're a Java developer, yeah, you know what? You
write your ticket.
Yeah, that's it. You're good. You could, well, we would certainly look the other way often.
Yeah.
So I think I'd draw the line with a toilet flush if I was interviewing somebody. But other than that, if you're in a demanded position or you hold these skills, we're going to be pretty flexible.
In an RV or no?
Oh, good. No. Well, is theirs?
They don't flush. They don't flush.
Yeah, if it's their RV, then it should be fine. But if they're a guest and they've been explicitly told not to, then no.
Are there any trends that you're currently seeing in the labor market right now that are shifting? that, you know, you can kind of see the mark because you've been doing this for, you know, almost 2 decades. So it's kind of like, where's like, oh, this is an interesting trend, or, you know, behavioral questions versus, you know, if you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be? You know, that those types of crap questions we used to get.
Oh yeah, no, there's a bunch of those. And they're all pretty ridiculous. We are seeing, like many things, there's fads that kind of come and go. Psychometric testing, so aptitude tests, kind of personality tests, have kind of waxed and waned in terms of their use within the industry. I think video interviewing, especially with the pandemic, is something we've seen more of. Which is also kind of, you know, and something I would recommend to people, which is, like right now I'm talking to myself on the video. Super weird. I'm realizing that like my hair is a rat nest. Like it's weird, right? It's different. I'm definitely an older millennial, so it's it took some time to get used to that. So if you are interviewing, and you're coming out of a place where you did go into the office, or you haven't been using Zoom or you know, Teams, practice it. I know it sounds a little cheesy, but get a friend and being like, hey, can we run through a bit of a mock interview? Here's some questions that I found online specific to what kind of generically the position I'm applying for would include. Can you run me through? Can you make sure I'm not doing anything weird with my hands or my face, or like making sure my audio works, my video is clear? These are all kind of things that you should be aware of. Because it is how a lot of people are going forward. The one-way video interviewing too is really catching on as a trend. So that of course would be pre-recorded questions, and then applicants would then say, you know, they'd had the opportunity to answer questions. It's interesting as a platform idea, because often people will get opportunities to re-record. So the question might be, what is your greatest strength? And then you'll have 3 tries to on video respond to that. And then those video snippets will then be shared with the recruiter or the hiring manager. Say, hey, here's, you know, even before you get to see the resume or see the profile notes, you get to learn a little bit about them. You get to understand their communication styles. And we're seeing more of that.
So then it's fair to say that that's probably not going to go anywhere.
I don't think so.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What are these? So I remember one time, I was living in Australia for a period of about 3 years. And I remember interviewing.
Accent, Brendan?
What's that?
I'm going to give us our best accent.
Oh, yeah. Good day, mate. Yeah. Right. Like, I mean, I didn't really, that's really bad. It's been 15 years.
Shrimp on the bobby.
Yeah.
Some shrimp on the bobby.
That's not that's a knife. No?
Yeah. But so for 3 years, and I was interviewing to come back home. This is in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember it was just like the only way to do it was from, like, I forget what the program or the platform was that we were using at the time. The job was in California. And I just found it so weird because to do that, you know, online, but then the interviewer's camera didn't work. So here I am talking exactly like I'm doing right now, and then a blank screen. So this person could see me, but I couldn't see them, which I just felt. Are you finding that to be like, are those some do's and don'ts, or?
Yeah, that would bother me so much. I really, at the end of the day, I think it just comes down to etiquette, being polite, being, you know, as a recruiter, making sure that folks feel comfortable speaking with you, right? Because that's going to prompt and promote the most useful conversations. It is a curious, like, again, I'm older. I don't live stream. I don't like it is a way that we're going to have to get comfortable with, because this is how the world is interviewing, the world is connecting these days. But absolutely, you know what? If you've got a video interview, then be prepared. You don't have to wear pants. Wear a nice shirt. You know, comb your hair. Have a nice background. I will share a story. This happened to me over Christmas break, and we're all like, you know, obviously the kids are home. I was interviewing somebody, and I have a 3-year-old. Great guy, not super into pants, and I was on a video call with somebody. And while he was wearing a Paw Patrol robe, when I left him to go do this video call, the robe was then opened, and then he to come say hello. And so it was a bit of but these things happen, right? So again, like kind of, or the dog barks at the Amazon delivery guy. Like these are things that you can do everything to kind of control your situation, make sure you're presentable, make sure you've got no lipstick on your teeth or mustard on your shirt when you're video interviewing. But again, being compassionate, leaning into what Jessica said too, right? Like be kind. Do your best to kind of make the other person feel comfortable, be open, and just, if something like that happens, like have a laugh. We're all human, right? We all do what Brendan wants to do in the RV. So.
I thought you were going to say the person you were interviewing didn't have pants.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
No, it was my little guy who was on Christmas break, but I had to do a couple interviews, and so I was like, here, watch some Paw Patrol, hang out, and then he came, and it was. Yeah. And the guy was super cool. He was super cool about it. I didn't realize Emmett was behind me, and then I see this guy's eyes get huge, and he was like,
That's awesome.
So, is there besides that? Human. I mean, when we can, have there been some interviews that you've done, maybe over the pandemic, or maybe in person? How about like where you're just like, oh, that's just what? Don't do that. Like, why did you do that? Like, that was kind of like anything of that nature that pops into your mind. Obviously, keep it as confidential as possible. But I mean, like that, where you're like
picking your nose.
We all work with people. Kristen works with people. We know that people are insane sometimes. And the pandemic has, if anything, it's taken the veil off, right? Like we're in our own home, we're walking around in our underwear, kind of picking our nose, and then to kind of re-engage in a video setting, you can kind of forget your manners sometimes. So, oh yeah, I've been put on hold. Again, the McDonald's drive-thru was a real winner. Yeah, it's funny. And there does seem to be a difference in terms of whether the candidate is an applicant or whether we've reached out directly. There's not always, but there can be kind of a sense of like, well, you called me, like I am going to eat this sandwich in front of you. I did have someone eat on a video call, which was very curious, which was great. So, lots of crumbs, and it wasn't like something nice. It was like a pastry. So there was shrapnel. Yeah, like, again, just use your common sense. Like, when you're interviewing, pretend that it's like a kind of a stuffy old aunt you haven't seen in a while. Like, have your manners, look nice, and be prepared. Research the company, research the recruiter. We all have our LinkedIn. See if there's any kind of, points of, connectivity within your network. Maybe you guys went to the same university. Maybe it's always great to kind of build that rapport. And a good way going into any conversation is armed with information. One of the questions I always ask people right off the hop is kind of like, what do you know about us? Like, kind of describe how you would, how you understand our place in market. And you'd be surprised the number of people that are like, I don't know. And then they always try to be all like savvy and being like, well, I was really hoping you could tell me about it. No, we get that you like, it's a Google, right? Like, go on, take 2 seconds to look it up, come in prepared. It shows buy-in, it shows interest. And that's going to put a smile on the recruiter's face.
I have a personal just that will segue into the I guess because I know you're tight on time as well, so I want to make sure that I'm cognizant of your time. But so here's the situation: a recruiter reached out, which in via LinkedIn to set up a I took I did your advice, which is, hey, take the phone call, take the phone call. The salary range wasn't posted at the time on this job posting, and I want to know your opinion about that later. But then I turned around, and I was happily employed very happily employed. I didn't, my LinkedIn didn't say, actively looking for work or anything like that. And so during the interview or the preamble with the recruiter, before we went to the official, I just said, hey, so what's the salary range? What can someone, and they turned to me and said, well, we're not at that stage yet. We're seeing if you're, a fit to move on to the next stage. And I responded by saying, but you reached out to me to see if I'm interested to go to the next stage. And in essence, I don't want to waste anyone's time, because if you're going to pay me, like $18 an hour, then like I have zero interest where, so what are your thoughts on that, on A, posting salary ranges, and B, if that is not posted for whatever reason, asking that in the interview?
So you know what, Brandon, I think about this all the time, and I go back and forth. And the reality is different companies are at different stages of even having process. So for example, I've worked for large companies that there's thousands of employees. Every single job is graded, and there's a salary band, and you can't go a dollar under, you can't get a dollar over. It's very, very cut and dry. So that's something that they absolutely could post. But then you have a lot of, let's say, small to mid-sized organizations. Maybe they are a startup and they don't have the HR infrastructure in place right now. They've got a budget, of course. They have an idea as to what they look to pay for this role. But again, specific to tech talent, and because it is so kind of difficult to come across, maybe they may have a lot more flexibility, right? Like they don't have a comp team that's gone through and necessarily graded all the jobs, and it's super hard and fast, and the approval process to go outside of this budget is cumbersome. It could be as quick as being like, wow, you know what? Like maybe we didn't consider a candidate so senior, but that would work really well on the team. So it cuts both ways. I think that what you can do is, if the recruiter's being a little wishy-washy, know that it's probably not them. It's probably the hiring manager is still trying to figure out what the role is even going to look like. If you feel so inclined, say kind of, hey, get your ducks in a line and then kind of come back to me, or you can just straight up come back with well, here's the number I would be looking at to make the move. Like, let me know. And at that point, that might be a conversation that they go back to the hiring manager and say, hey, I found this guy. He's really great. He's got X, Y, and Z. Here's the comp range that we'd be looking at. And then it's a quick conversation, and you're not, wasting anybody's time.
No, that's perfect. I appreciate you giving the honest answer. And, I never even actually thought that it's probably not the recruiter. It's probably the hiring manager that hasn't really figured out the parameters of the job description or of what they're actually going to be doing. So yeah, that's actually some interesting insight.
That's, at the end of the day, it is on the recruiter for probably not doing a really deep intake call with the hiring manager. It should be something that's pretty standard. But again, if you're working for a smaller company, a startup, like they might not have that in place. And so they're kind of reaching out, they're testing the waters. The other thing too, is if they are a smaller or even mid-sized company, they wouldn't necessarily have the resources that a larger company comp team would have, right? So they don't necessarily have salary bands. This may be the first time they're hiring for this role. And so they're going to be like, well, shit, what is the market telling us, right?
Yep.
They don't know. The hiring manager might not have hired for this position in 2 years. In 2018, salary ranges are a lot different than what 2022 looks like. So I don't think, there's anything offside about saying, cool, love to learn a little bit more, kind of send me a job description, and here's what I'm looking for to make a move.
Well, we appreciate the well, I almost did a little self-promotion there, professional insight into how it all works. But in the essence of,
can I make a quick comment or just statement about it? A couple of, my wife's company is one of the world's largest engineering firms. Wood is the name of the company. And she asked HR for a band of what does her job pay. they won't even give that to an active employee, let alone a recruiter. And that's not leaving a good taste in the mouth of the employees.
That's gross. You know what? And I say that because if your policy is good, if you're doing everything above board, you should be able to shout it from the rooftops, right?
I agree with that.
That would have like internal pay equity alarm bells kind of going off in my brain if I heard that.
That's where my brain went. Absolutely.
I think transparency it's really, really important, right? Very curious. And again, if it's such a great policy, if you guys have things nailed down, then grade them and share the grades. The grades won't necessarily make sense to an external candidate, but internally you should know, oh, this is a grade 7. I know roughly kind of what that looks like. The other thing too, well, for another podcast on another day, but just in terms of, a lot of these graded jobs, if you're an internal candidate, they're actually maxed at what, if they do take a promotion, if they take the next grade up.
Yes, I've heard that. Yep.
And then you have to go and fight tooth and nail for a market adjustment at the end.
That's actually
from the recruiter to answer that email.
That would actually be a really good topic for another podcast, because that's something that, like, how do you negotiate an interview, and how actually, oh my God, how okay, yeah, like how to negotiate a raise in an interview and all that kind of stuff. And because I work for a corporation where max raise in a year can be only 20% of what you were on, and yet you'd be going for a promotion, and that wouldn't even knock you into the next band level because of just how it all worked out. So here you are doing the promotion job, but not even in the right band level or on the very low end. But I am very cognizant, though, of your day and of your time. And thank you so much for 45 minutes has flown by. And so to anyone that has more questions about Patricia, we are going to have her on the podcast again. And so info@professionalinsight.ca. And to everyone that's listening and sharing and carrying these links and sites, we really appreciate it. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube. We'll wrap it up because we got to get back to it, and so does Patricia.
We gotta get to the RV.
Together.
Yeah,
so, Melissa, send me a LinkedIn request.
Beautiful.
What's your last name, Patricia, so we can?
It's Brick.
Brett?
Brick. Like a brick in the wall.
Brick house.
Pink Floyd reference.
So perfect. Well, thanks very much. Hey, thanks to Chris Rook and to Matt Kundell for doing the show behind the scenes. Without you guys, we would not be anywhere. Rookie, you're amazing. You just get us out of a lot of jams. So thank you. Please like, share, care, and subscribe. Bondo, take us out.
Help us. Help you. Stay informed.
Thanks, everybody.
Out.
Rook.